weird stuff. You like some, you won't like some.
Good morning. Welcome to the second forum that the Chamber sponsored. My name is Doug Lawrence. I'm the current chairperson of the Community Affairs for the Chamber. I'd like to introduce the head table from Ward 4 on the end, Jerry Ballas, Lynn Hellegaard, Ward 5, Renee Mitchell, Christine Prescott, Ward 6, Ed Childers, and Lewie Schneller. We're trying to get this all done within 90 minutes, so we kind of have a format. We'll allow them each 2 minutes to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about them, why they're running. And then we've prepared 6 questions that we've shared with them, so they can prepare some answers. And that way keep it moving along. I'll present the question, they'll answer, they'll have 1 minute. And at the end of that, we'll open it up to some other questions. We'll give them each a time to respond to that, and then we'll give them a 1 minute closing. Okay? So, Mr. Ballas, Jerry, if you'd like to start for us.
Thank you very much. I'm Jerry Ballas. I'm running for re-election in Ward 4. I've completed 2 terms, and so I will be running for my 3rd term to represent that neighborhood. I've been working in private business for the last 35 years, most of which has been as a managing partner. So I've signed a lot of checks on both sides of the checks. I've signed a lot of checks on the front side of the check. I've done a lot of my own bookkeeping, keeping track of taxes for employees, Social Security, and doing all the other things. So I really have a pretty good understanding of what private business has to do to stay in business. I have experienced the governing effects of businesses, both good and bad. I remember when business property tax was first introduced and we were trying to buy our first computer system, and knowing what the cost of it was, and then trying to figure out, well, how much tax do I have to pay on that business equipment tax? So I understand some of those deals. As an architect, I've had to work with, a good share of my business has been with small business. So I understand the impacts that government puts on small businesses. Take a look at one of my latest 2 projects. One was the Little Red Caboose out on Broadway. Where how many cups of coffee do you have to sell to pay for $5,000 worth of trees and $3,000 or $4,000 worth of impact fees, and that it's a huge challenges to businesses. And Bill Gomer that just added a new warehouse so he could expand his internet activities. Very little impact on the building, but he keeps asking me, how come you keep asking me to pay more to just do my business? All I want to do is make a living. I pay my taxes, I hire employees, I build the economy in Missoula, and what I get is a claim that I don't pay my fair share. I happen to believe that small business does pay their fair share. They pay their taxes, they help the community expand, and without small business, we would not have an economy at all.
Thank you, Jerry. Lynn?
I'm Lynn Hellegaard. I'm running for City Council in Ward 4. I've been in Missoula for 33 years. I've lived in my house for 25, have 2 kids. For 19 years, I was employed in the financial industry. The last 7.5 years, I've been the executive director of a nonprofit in town that provides transportation services to commuters and seniors and adults with disabilities. My husband and I own a small business in town, so I know the impacts of what a small business endures, what the nonprofits in this town endure, what the people living on fixed incomes in this town are enduring with what I view to be poor fiscal policies of this city. We're making it harder and harder for people that live on fixed incomes that have worked very hard to pay off their homes to stay in those homes. Our policies related to taxing businesses are driving those businesses out into the county, which is going to soften our tax base here in the city. We've been ignoring our infrastructure for years, building toys. We need to change those policies. We need to look at our policies to see if in fact they are detrimental to attainable housing. And forcing our seniors to sell their homes and move to communities like Butte and Anaconda so that they can live out their lives in a home.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
Renee?
I'm Renee Mitchell. I live in Ward 5. I've been a resident of Missoula for over 4 decades. I came here in 1966 to go to the university. Stayed because I married a business owner. My husband had Jack's Transelectric for over 30 years. So I was familiar with the hoops that we had to jump through as his small business. I work for a nonprofit. I've been with Missoula Youth Homes for nearly 20 years, in addition to my other activities in town. I got interested in the council basically over an infill issue that happened up in Briggs Court, and our neighborhood was pretty much gelled together and had feelings about that, strong feelings, and we pushed it as far as we could. We didn't get any satisfaction, but that was my first passion for getting my family down to City Hall. And since I've been down there, I have watched the Broadway corridor, to the chagrin of many of the businesses there, turn into what it has now. I've seen South Avenue reconstruction choke off the businesses on South Avenue. And even for a veteran driver like myself to get around town, I sometimes forget as I'm heading toward town on South that I gotta figure out something different and backtrack. I think that we need to work together. We need to see infrastructure that helps business. We need to have infrastructure that's going to be compatible with our growth. And I feel like I can represent the people in my ward and help make decisions that are wise and beneficial to Missoula.
Thank you, Renee. Christine?
I'm Christine Prescott, and I'll say the Ward 5 is the southwesternmost ward in the city, in case you're wondering where it is. I'll never forget the look on the face of one of my coworkers when he found out I was running for the city council. He just went, "Why?" Like, I could hear this, what he was saying was, "I thought you were so sane." I'm running to be a positive voice on the council, and I believe that everybody should serve their community in some way, in the way that best fits their passions and best fits their abilities. I'm a person that asks the tough questions, the questions that nobody wants to hear asked and nobody wants to answer, and to keep after it until I get the answers. Probably partially because of this, the way I think, and partially from being an attorney and being a trial attorney. The way that I look at issues is I don't make a decision about the issue before I know what all the facts are in the issue. Gather it up and look at all the different effects. And certainly I'm going to look at the effect of business on any issue. It won't be the major effect, but my dad had a real estate office for 25 years. I had my own law office for 7 years, and now I'm starting a business as a facilitator. I have a Missoula business license. Just joined the chamber not too long ago. So I'm looking forward to getting to know a lot of you better. But I have observed that a lot of the divisiveness on the council comes from people coming on the council with issues. You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop that. I'm not going to allow this to happen. And then you either kind of twiddle with the facts to make them fit your decision, or you just say, don't confuse me with the facts. And I would see myself as playing kind of a Sandra Day O'Connor role on the council, as somebody who's thoughtful, somebody who's careful, and somebody who's not going to be predictable about how I'm going to decide, because I can't tell you how I'm going to decide on an issue until I know all the facts about the issue. Somebody asked me what I wanted to accomplish as a council member, and what I hope to accomplish is helping the council to take more of a leadership role, as well as just helping Missoula become a really strong and healthy place where everybody can live and work and play together.
Thank you, Christine. Ed?
I'm Ed Childers. I'm a Ward 6 representative. Ward 6 is south of the river and west of Russell Street and goes down just about past the mall, stays north of Brooks now. We just changed that this year. I've worked in and around the city for most of the last 30 years, as some of you know. I used to issue business licenses and collect sewer use fees, and tried to do it in as fair and equitable a manner as was possible. The decisions I make are based, I hope, on the facts and on the laws that govern the decision we're about to make. And sometimes I make decisions with which that I'd rather not make, but when the rules say to do them, I do them. Really, my only goal is to try to keep Missoula getting a little better every day. And I think we have. I've got a list of things that have happened since I got on the council that I gave to Doug. Lots of little things. You'll like some of them, you'll dislike some of them. I don't think I've ever been fully allied with any group or any philosophy, but here I am. I note that the things on the front, while they cover a lot of area, don't really equate two lines on the back, which are budgets and subdivision and zoning. And the city's budget, like everybody else's, is constrained by revenues and expanded by expenditures with which we have no control. So our costs keep going up. If people want the same services cost more. The money has to come from somewhere, and it comes from me and you.
Thank you, Ed. Those things that he handed me, I will put on the back table. Everybody's welcome to have it as they pass out. Lewie?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lewie Schneller, and candidate for Ward 6 City Council. Thank you for having me here and to be part of this group here today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Probably most of you have never met me before or know much about me. I'm the challenger here in this race, and I'm very happy to be so as that. I've lived 27 years in Ward 6 that I represent, 34 years in Missoula consecutively. I come from Butte. I was here as a freshman in 1961, and I was a student, graduated in 67, and with a ROTC degree and a degree in liberal arts. During that period of time, I got to be a Grizz football player, at least during the practice sessions, for 3 years. And that was a great experience for me. I raised 4 children as a single parent. I have 3 of my 4 children live out of state. One is a college jazz band director. 2 are nurses, and I have 1 daughter left in town here that is a nurse that works at St. Pat's. I think that's interesting. 3 out of the 4 children had to leave Missoula. They love Missoula. I love Missoula. I came here and stayed in Missoula because I love Missoula. That's part of why I'm running. That's why I'm a volunteer to become a candidate to run against my opponent and the incumbent, Ed Childers here. I have some special qualifications that you may be concerned about in terms of the chamber. I am a Montana licensed independent contractor. I've been so for several years. I operate a business as a sole proprietor called LJS Chair Concessions, and this business is a fundraising business. I raise funds for the Missoula YMCA and for the University of Montana, specifically the athletic department. So I've had a lot of experience in terms of sales and marketing and manufacturing. At the present time, this business concept that I've designed is in the present process of being developed in other states. But my special consideration right now is that I want to see open and honest government. I want to see fair play. That's what I represent. I would like to see a more effective city government take place, a more congenial city government, and a government that's open and above the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewie. Our first question, we'll start with Jerry. As an elected official, if you had to vote today on the future of the Broadway corridor and funding was not a major issue, would you support the Broadway corridor as a 3-lane thoroughfare for 4?
I would definitely support the 4-lane. I think we need to look down the future for that development of that highway, and it's going to be one of the major entrances to the downtown area, and if we can't find a way to make it a 4-lane highway, basically what we're going to do is kill the businesses out there. because I know right now when traffic gets tough, I go out to the interstate and I bypass that area, and so those businesses don't get to count my cars down there. So I would support the 4-lane. If I got a little minute, I hear the word toys playing around. There was a time when I used to consider this to be a toy. Right now, I hear people talk about the city using PDAs as toys. I've got a park manager that spends 90% of his time out in the field. And in order to answer the emails that he has to have a PDA with him so he can respond to those people that ask him questions. So they aren't toys anymore. They're becoming essential business equipment that we have to have, and I wish people would stop referring to them as toys.
Thank you, Jerry. Lynn?
I would support the 4-lane. Major reason that I would support the 4-lane is 10,000 citizens in this town made the effort to sign a petition saying they wanted a 4-lane. We don't listen to our citizens in this town. We've decided before we ever hear from them what is best for them. I can tell you, running a transportation agency, my drivers have a horrible time if they pull over on Broadway within that narrowed section, getting back out into traffic and keeping on a schedule so people get their rides on time. The businesses there. I was out there last week and I thought, oh my gosh, if you wanted to get to Aspen Sound and you're not coming down Toole Avenue, good luck with that maneuver. The disability community has said that they want a user-activated stoplight there. They've said that from day one. They don't feel safer on that road now because they say no one will stop to let them cross. So I think we've tried it. It hasn't worked for the majority. Let's put it back to the 4-lane.
Thank you, Lynn. Renee?
Years ago, when I went to a council meeting and I saw the people from the homes there on West Broadway come into the meeting in their wheelchairs with their crutches. All they were asking for was a way to cross the road. And the next thing we knew, businesses were shut down because of construction. They weren't informed about it. It was a terrible, terrible thing to happen. It was very divisive for our city. Then there were meetings. We had a change of mayor, and there were meetings about what we're gonna do. And as Lynn pointed out, the majority of people wanted the 4-lane road. We never should have tinkered with going to 3 lanes in the first place. Then one of the pieces of information we heard, whether, I don't know if there's substance to it or not, is that, well, if we change this, then we're gonna have to pay back Department of Transportation many, many thousands of dollars. And I know money is a driving force, but we could have done way better, and we need to keep that open for people to have access to their businesses and for traffic to have access to businesses.
Thank you. Christine?
Well, I'm sorry that someone felt it was necessary to ask this question, because there's enough divisiveness on the council without pitting 3-laners against 4-laners. And I've seen what happens with boards where new people decide that they're gonna come in and anything they don't like that was a previous decision, they're gonna change it. And my answer to this question is, this issue has been decided by the city council. When I consider anything that has happened before January 2008 to be precedent to me, and if it comes back up again, if the circumstances are the same, then I'll vote the way that the previous council voted.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
The question I read was, money is no object. The question you just mentioned was not a major object. So my answer is, money is no object. And that's great. Since the Broadway corridor is not defined, I'm gonna assume it's Broadway and it extends from Bonner on the east and to the airport on the west end. And I'm gonna assume not only that we have an unlimited pot of money, but that the landowners along Broadway won't oppose what we do, because going to a road that I'm envisioning is gonna use some of their property. And then let's forget the 4-lane, because the 4-lane through the road diet area was determined to be a dangerous failed roadway by the State Department of Transportation. And let's add a far more workable option, which is a 5-lane road with 4 driving lanes and 1 turning lane. We'd have a great roadway. There'd be 5 lanes, there'd be bike lanes, sidewalks with wide boulevards between the street with lots of parking and the sidewalk, pedestrian islands to help public safely cross the street, traffic signals or maybe roundabouts if there's places where they're shown to be better, helpful and courteous drivers, and the signals would be timed so you drive a constant uninterrupted speed from one end to the other at any time of day and night. And landscaping, don't forget the landscaping. There's plenty of money for maintenance, I hope.
Thank you. Lewie?
Thank you. 4-lane. I don't like the West Broadway diet the way it exists today. I don't know anybody who does. I'm really very concerned about the fact that their citizen input, taxpayer input really wasn't paid attention to in this situation. Missoula needs more easy traffic that works, not less, that's congested. I'm a little bit concerned about the South Avenue situation in Ward 6. Tidyman's is now becoming a big, small mini mall. And so what's going to happen with the traffic on South Avenue now? And people trying to get on and off of South Avenue as a result of that new construction. These are serious issues, but I think above all, the needs of the people have to be taken into consideration here. The people who use the road, the people who are driving, they have to be listened to. That's what I represent as a candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewie. Second question, which I'll start with Renee. What specific steps would you implement to retain existing business and attract new business to Missoula?
Can I review my written response here? I think that business locations are important. People come and try to locate their business where they're easily accessed. I think by having the infrastructure that enables that will encourage business. I think that businesses locate here for a lot of the same reasons that people live here. They like it. If they like it, they're going to find employees who like it. And in order for that to happen, we need to police, for instance, our downtown area where we have panhandlers that have aggressively been challenging shoppers and shop owners. And having keeping this community open to an environment where people want to come live is going to help people that want to establish a business here or keep a business here have happier employees. And I think we need to do our part in making sure that that happens and not be taxing these businesses out of existence. And I think people should continue to love Missoula whether they work here or retire here or go to school here. That would be my hope.
Thank you, Renee. Christine?
I've lived in several cities that have had the position of an economic development coordinator. That person actually goes out to businesses, I don't know, maybe all over the world, and tells them how great it would be to come to Missoula, helps them to explore Missoula. Then if they think, well, maybe we could move here, different areas they could have their business, and it really helps them to, for instance, with DirecTV, it would help them explore the job pool and how much they would have to pay their workers. I would also favor that if that position was created, that it be under the mayor, simply so it's not accused of being influenced by somebody else, as well as being close to the communication person, Ginny Merriman, because you would certainly want to wonder if you should advertise, look, this company's thinking about coming here, and it would be good for them to be close together. This person could also be an ombudsman type position if businesses were having trouble with some regulations or filling something out, they could go to this person and help them. I found the business license process to be really straightforward and easy, and I hope it stays that way. And I'd sure like for the city not to levy more property taxes on me, personal property taxes, to defray anything else. But I found it so far to be a pretty good process, and I'd like it to stay that way for small businesses like myself.
Thank you, Christine. Ed?
It's great having prepared answers. I listen to business. I doubt they'd expect me to have better ideas than they have. In the interim, it seems some businesses come here because a workforce thinks $10 an hour is a great thing and they're good, reliable workers. It's a nice place to live. Plenty of businesses come here. It's getting better with added pathways, bike lanes, sidewalks and such. There are economic incentives to come here, and there are some follow me kind of things that happen too. Yesterday I heard GE Financial is moving into Billings. I was kind of hoping they'd move here, but that didn't work out. But the folks that were talking about it on the radio says that's a good thing. Other businesses will look at that and they'll come to Montana too.
Okay. Lewie?
People come to Missoula and they stay here because they like it here. There's something about Missoula that people like. That hasn't happened with business yet. A little bit, but we're marching down that road. The talent, the creativity, the special character and quality of the people who live here is great. We just need to develop an attitude, an approach, a direction that's going to allow those who can help bring in the business to accommodate the same purpose.
Thank you, Larry. Jerry?
You know, it's a pretty complex question. If you remember back to the DirecTV and what it took to bring DirecTV to Missoula. It took a whole variety of issues to bring that business to Missoula. And really, individual council people, we can't really implement anything. We need 11 other people that we have to work with and figure out how to compromise and talk to in order to set any kind of policies for the city. What I do is I look to the business community. I look to the professionals in the chamber, the downtown association, and the MAEDC for advice on how to make Missoula competitive, attracting new businesses and retaining those existing businesses. Some of the things I think we need to look at and emphasize are maintaining a high quality of life. We need to maintain reasonable business fees. We need to have clear, equitable business regulations. We need to have an educated workforce, and that means a good university system. We need to have tax rates that are comparable with adjacent cities and states, because we can't compete with them. We're not going to bring people here. We need to have a functional, efficient transportation system. One of the biggest problems we have is moving goods from Missoula to someplace else in the United States. And we need to have a good quality healthcare system. All those things we need right now, we have, and we need to maintain them.
Jerry, Lynn?
I think that we need to involve the business community more with city council, whether it's subcommittees. I would like to maybe start or ask for a subcommittee to be formed. States surrounding us have streamlined permit processings. They have incentive programs where they use their community block grant money or their open space money to help defray the cost of new businesses coming in with the infrastructure needs, whether it's building a bus stop that's attractive to their employers and consumers, so we're not adding more traffic to the streets. They also use their open space funds to encourage businesses to locate in blighted areas so that the city's not having to have all these redevelopment zones. The other thing that I think we need to do is change, or at least instill an attitude at the city that time is money. We hear the city part or the Public Works Department always saying that anytime we extend out these construction projects, the costs go up. I don't know that they equate that to the business community.
Thank you, Lynn. For a third question, and I'll start with Ed. In the past, members of the Missoula Area Chamber of Commerce have not felt they've been invited to participate in the city's planning or decision-making process. What would you do to change this?
Well, I'd ask the chamber what they think is lacking to start with, whether it's the chamber as a whole that feels that way or some individual members, and see if that situation can be rectified. You know, the chamber is one of the entities that gets notified of everything that the city does, and the chamber sends a representative to our meetings who testifies for the chamber on issues. So if there's more that you think we should do or things that you think we haven't done, we need to know that. The business community naturally is not going to make the decisions for the city council, but they certainly need to have a good solid input into what we do, and I thought they did.
Okay, thank you. Lewie?
One of the candidates in Ward 6, who I've gotten to know pretty well, and we've become friends, Marty Guthrie, who finished third. We were discussing this very issue the other day, and he came up with a really great idea, and I support this idea, and that's called mobile city council meetings. And what we do is once a month or once every couple of months, we go to a neighborhood, a particular neighborhood in a particular ward, and have our city council meeting there, so that the people of the neighborhood can feel identified with the city council again. You go down to the city chambers, and it's kind of an intimidating place if you haven't been down there. It almost seems like a courtroom. And you know, people have a little bit of difficulty standing up in front of that podium. And you've got to go downtown, and you've got the parking issue. I think the city council could do a wonderful thing by bringing the city council to the people in the neighborhoods, in the neighborhood council areas where they exist, and get the people directly involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
You know, when any organization comes to us and feels and tells us that they feel they're not being involved, I think we need to take that at face value and not try to second guess whether it's real or not. I understand that the chamber represents a good majority of the businesses in Missoula. So I utilize, and by experience, the chambers during my 7 years on council to make sure that businesses are aware of activities that are going on in the city. I've called your director a number of times and say, hey, do you know there's some people in the neighborhood in south of Missoula that want to change 5th and 6th Street from a state designated highway to a local access street. And I think that might affect some of your representatives. You need to, get involved in here. So I personally have gone out of my way to make sure the chamber is invited to the table. The Greenhouse Gas Energy Conservation Committee, I've made sure that the chamber and their members were invited to that meeting. And I made sure that some of the chamber people were actually appointed to the committees, because I can remember sitting in a lot of committee meetings where we've appointed people, and people that have applied from the chamber were not really considered as being serious applicants.
Jerry, Lynn?
Well, in my business career, I have been very blessed, as Missoula is, to meet and work with very knowledgeable, creative business people. And when I read that question, I thought, isn't that a sad state of affairs that this wonderful resource feels that it's not being fully utilized? And to some extent, I agree. I think it has been detrimental to this community as a whole. These impact fees that they're trying to assess on the businesses, they, on one hand, say we don't want sprawl. Well, that policy encourages sprawl. It's going to encourage the businesses to go out where their tax burden isn't as great. The perception that I've had from attending the meetings is that the majority on the council believes that our business community is making way too much money. They deserve a piece of that pie, but they also expect you, on the other hand, to hold your prices firm so that you take the hit. They don't understand that you need to pass those on to the consumer. So again, they're hitting the fixed income people because they're the ones that have no means to improve their income.
Thank you, Lynn. Renee?
I also mentioned in my response to this that if that indeed is true, that it is a sad situation that we are not using all the knowledge that so many people in this town possess. We've got a great university, we've got businesses that have been established, we have businesses that are relatively new. I had the pleasure of touring the Big Sky Brewery yesterday for my first time. I took my brother, who's here today, from Milwaukee, knows a little bit about brewing. Worked for Miller for some time. It was fun to see this business and these people enjoy their job. And if we're not working with people who know business, then we need to find out what can we do to improve these communications and invite these people to the table. And I do not like hearing the line that I've heard so many times from City Hall is that, well, the notice was listed in the paper. Well, my eyesight isn't that great, and I'm sure that a lot of us have trouble seeing that teeny tiny print. And if that's the only notification people have, I'm sure that they're feeling left out. And Kayla, that's why we're depending upon you to help us, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Christine?
I would agree with Ed that I would certainly like to have more information about in what way the chamber feels it's not being invited. Is it the chamber as a whole or particular business people? Now, at the zoning plan rewrite meeting, 90% of my table were local business people. And, you know, I know the open meeting laws in Montana are just really, really strict, more so than any other state I've ever been in. And so everything is open. And it's my understanding also that one of the functions of the city council person, your representative, is to be a liaison with you. And I would hope if you lived in Ward 5 and you cared about certain issues, you'd let me know so I could keep you advised when those things were coming up in some way. You can also apply for boards. When I wanted to be on the library board, I applied and got interviewed. And so, you know, it seems to me that it's fairly open, but I would want to sit down with somebody and say exactly what is not being done, and then, you know, work to fix whatever that is, because I don't know what it is.
Thank you, Christine. Our next question, we'll switch the direction, starting with Lewie. As a member of City Council, how would you support the vitality of the construction industry in Missoula?
I wish I'd have brought my notes with me. Well, the construction industry, I think, in Missoula is healthy. It's very strong. I think that in terms of the projects that are taking place and the great building that's going on, I think things are pretty well in place for that right now. So I would just continue to support the good policies and the good action of what's been taking place for as long as it has been to maintain what's taking place. I think there's about as much as I want to say on it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Well, I'd keep supporting projects and the people that are involved in them. This list that I made some copies of has lots and lots of bits and pieces on it that I think show that I've supported the construction industry for most of 8 years. So I do, and I'll continue to.
Thank you. Christine?
When I'm looking at this question, I'm thinking of how I interpreted it as the construction industry being people that pound the nails and pour the concrete, which, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. That's the way I interpreted it. And I'm thinking about all the market forces that the city council doesn't have any control over, the cost of lumber, the cost of all the supplies, and the state and federal regulations that the city council doesn't have any control over. For instance, what burned trees can be logged and what can be done with them. So I just see a lot of what the vitality of the construction industry is dependent on a lot of things that have nothing to do with the city council.
Okay. Renee?
Missoula has witnessed tremendous growth in the last 10 or 15 years. most of it is good. I think there have been some opposition to some of the developments by the people who are immediately adjacent and most affected by them. Usually has to do with traffic or inability for traffic to get by. I think that we need to, whether we have impact fees or not, the costs are gonna be borne some way. It's either gonna be through higher taxes, and ultimately it's gonna be passed down to the residential homeowner. Do we put these same fees on businesses? I don't see how we can do that if we're going to encourage new business. But I think there's a balance there. We don't know exactly what that best balance is. Think we've been working on it, and I think we'll definitely need to pay attention and continue to work on that.
Thank you. Lynn?
There's two things that I see here. Again, my time is money. I've talked to several people, architects, business owners, that have said, I've gone down to the city to get a permit. I have to wait 4 to 6 weeks because so-and-so's on vacation. To me, that's appalling. That staff should be cross-trained, so anytime anybody needs a permit, you can come in and get it. Idaho has one of their fast-track permitting things is depending on how many jobs you're creating, what the positive revenue impacts are going to be to the city. They actually assign you one project manager that you deal with from start to finish, so you don't have to keep re-explaining your program. The other thing that I think we need to look at is our infrastructure. Again, we've been ignoring it for years, so we're playing catch-up now. And that's why we're looking at these exorbitant fees for the transportation impact fee, because we've ignored it. Now we've got to start fixing it. And if you look at your infrastructure, you can direct where your growth goes, because the growth is going to go where the infrastructure goes.
Thank you. Jerry?
You know, supporting the construction industry is more than just creating jobs and making projects available and making subdivisions and things like that. To me, this is a business question. And as an architect, I've worked with contractors in the construction industry almost on a daily basis for 35 years. And the main thing I hear contractors tell me is they want our government to be predictable, fair, and consistent in the way it implements its regulations. So when I look at that, I look at the fees that contractors have to pay. I look at things like the business equipment, the taxes that they have to pay on their equipment. And I look at the impact in the building fees that continually go up. And sometimes those are not necessarily competitive with equitable fees in other towns. So contractors and construction just want to be treated fairly, and they want to be able, when they give you a price for construction, they want to be able to give that price to you fairly early on, and knowing that the rules aren't going to change down the road.
Jerry? Our next question, we'll start with Christine. As a candidate running for city council, by now you should be aware of the length of time it takes to approve subdivisions, get permits, etc. Please share with us your ideas on how to address these issues.
Well, I know from working what I've done with Habitat is that a good subdivision plat gets approved pretty easily. The person who does for Habitat, who does the contractor who does that, is known to do a good job, and it doesn't take very long to get approved. I believe that good developers want good development, and that regulations, and they know regulations, and some of them are state regulations, and which the city doesn't have any control over, especially for subdivisions. They have to have certain kinds of review. That those regulations are ensure good development, and good developers want good development. And I think if you ask the planning consultants who are members of the chamber, they're going to say that. So I think for people that are putting in the time and doing a good job, I don't think it really takes that long, and I don't think that they mind having good regulations to ensure that not only they have good development, but the other people that are developing in the city also are meeting the same standards that they are.
Thank you. Renee?
I don't know what ultimately the answer is. I agree that when plans come through, and I've seen this happen at council, when the developer has something that is attractive, not only something he wants, but the people in that area find attractive, it breezes right through. When you have woolly questions about zoning, subdivision evasion, that kind of thing, it gets way more complex, it gets way more drawn out. I'm sure that tensions run high. I've been there, I've seen it, I've experienced. We have a situation right now where up in the South Hills and off Hillview Way, there's going to be a development, and now there is a proposed assisted living complex going in up there. It'll be 152 units. You're gonna have service people coming in, work people coming in. The only access to that area is going to be Hillview Way. Now, I have no problem with assisted living homes. I think Missoula is going to need them and benefit from them. I think we better look at the infrastructure and how people are going to have access to this area. And that's where the snag comes in, and that's what's gonna slow this down, because I'm sure, I've already been getting phone calls, there are going to be some disagreements about this.
Thank you.
I ran out of time, thank you.
Lynn?
I'm very hopeful that our review of the zoning ordinances are going to result in a lot of the contradiction being removed, the ambiguity being removed, the confusing language being removed. I think the benefit to this is it will help the permitting process, because the Office of Planning and Grant staff will not be making all these interpretations of what this language means. And again, I think we need to look at the other things that I've touched on in looking at ways to streamline the processes that we've got and making them clear, applying them fairly to everyone.
Okay, Jerry?
Again, I guess I see this as kind of a two-part question. One is the subdivision review process that sometimes becomes lengthy, but then there's also the building permit process that sometimes takes 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months. And I'm well aware of that particular problem, because as an architect I have to submit projects, and sometimes I wait a long time for them to get through the review. Sometimes it's because somebody is out sick, and another time it's because somebody's on vacation and there's only one person that can do it. So one of the things I think we need to encourage as a policy is that our staff is cross-trained and we have some redundancy, so a project doesn't sit on somebody's desk while we wait for them to either get well or get back from vacation. But the other thing it relates has to do with the clarity of our subdivisions and our building regulations. Over the time, they have become very convoluted and hard to understand. They rely on a lot of interpretation. A lot of times the only person whose interpretation counts is the reviewing agency. The architects, the contractors, the designers, the engineers, a lot of times their interpretation does not hold true. So I look forward to our current process of trying to review those regulations and hopefully remove some of the ambiguity, make them clear, clean up the wording, and the process itself then will speed up.
Thank you, Jerry. Lewie?
A lot of good points have been already brought out, but I think the most important issue for myself as a candidate is what's good for Missoula. That's gotta be the ultimate question. That's part of my platform of why I'm running for city council. My desire to protect Missoula and its neighbors and our neighborhoods, that's an important issue to me. The zoning rewrite's been mentioned, and that's coming up. That's probably one of the most important things administratively for City Hall and the Office of Planning and Grants. It's gonna take place here, and it's gonna affect everybody. I think it's really important for you and for Missoula and the voters to take consideration of that and realize that decisions are gonna be made that's gonna affect Missoula for years to come. We need to be cognizant of that, and we need to be willing to put the right people in the right places to affect what's best for Missoula. And that's my goal. What is best for Missoula? Thank you.
you. Ed?
I'm aware of the time it takes to get anything done. I've been waiting for Russell Third to get environmental impact statement completed since 2000. I'm sure it was in the works before that. A great deal of the time involved with some aspects of the process comes from public notice and public hearing requirements. As there are staff constraints, we could hire more staff, that would cost more money. There are deficiencies in submitted applications. OPG has been trying to make that process works better for everybody involved. It's kind of hard. Last I heard, we had one plans examiner that was doing a job of 2 or 3 people. The guy's a genius, but he does go on vacation. We've hired people to replace him. They don't work as well or as fast. You know, short of eliminating notice and hearing requirements and hiring more staff, I really don't know how to address some of the things. I liked the idea I heard down there, have somebody shepherd somebody's application through the system. That's great. I don't know what it would cost, but it sounds good. The rewrite has been mentioned several times. We should probably all be aware that we're paying $250,000 to do that. We're hoping something good comes out of it, and I have to stop.
Thank you, Ed. Our last question, we'll start with Lynn. How do you propose Missoula plan for growth in both the residential and business sectors?
The Office of Planning and Grants has just embarked on a visioning project that they're using in conjunction with our transportation plan update. They're gonna be going out to the community and saying, what amenities do you want? What impacts are you willing to take for those amenities, whether it's taxes, whatever. I think we need to hook into that. I think we need to look at all the other, 40 million studies we've done on this town. We're accused of studying everything to death. Glean information out of those. I think that's one of the biggest shortfalls this city has, is that we do not have a vision on anything. I think it leads to poor fiscal decisions. I think it comes at the cost of the public not being told, if we do A, these are your choices, A, B. Do you wanna pay increased taxes to have this? Do you wanna give up this project, delay Russell Third? We're never given choices. So one of the things I would like to see is a policy where the residential growth supports the business and vice versa, where they work in conjunction with each other rather than in an adversarial type position.
Thank you, Lynn. Jerry?
You know, one of the main element that we need to plan for growth is a good plan. Right now, we're relying on our comprehensive plan that is many years old and probably out of date. And we're trying to establish new policies for growth policies that will help us decide where to go. The comprehensive plan very definitely needs to be updated. Our zoning and subdivision regulations need to be updated, and that's why I think the process is so important. But in order to do that, we need people to get involved in that. One of the complaints we've heard time and time again is that, yeah, you did this plan, but I really wasn't invited to the table. So one of the things in my goals is to make sure that the proper people are at the table when we discuss these plans, and they just aren't special interest groups that are being invited to the table. It will also take individuals with experience in both the residential and the business sectors to balance the often conflicting needs of these two sectors. And I believe I can bring some experience to that, and one of the reasons I decided to run again is because we are undertaking this review, and I think we do need people with long-term experience in both the business community and the Missoula community to help make those decisions.
Thank you, Jerry. Louis?
I like Missoula's downtown area. I'd like to see a lot more business stay in the downtown area. I'd like to see buildings go up. We can't go out much further, but I'd like to see an increase in getting some buildings up so we have more office space and more places for business to develop. That's our Missoula downtown is our business section. It's historically been that way. I think it is still today. And I think some emphasis needs to be put there. I'm very concerned about mixing, I think it's already been mentioned here, residential with the business districts and vice versa. I think it's really necessary to emphasize residential in the residential areas that's appropriate for that kind of construction and that kind of planning, and to keep business in the areas that accommodate the business interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
Well, I try to set aside or retain some parts of town to accommodate both. The big rewrite may address some portion of that. I'd like to see some minor commercial in the middle of residential or nearby, but making that work financially is problematic. Where I live, I'm within a couple of blocks of businesses of all kinds. Stores, the Staples is moving in. The mall is right practically across the street, and that pleases me no end, but we do have some traffic issues that you probably don't deal with if you're on the edge of town, because all the people on the edge of town come to the middle of town to shop. But we're dealing with that, and I really see that as the way to live. When Walmart wanted to expand, I called the Walmart, the neighborhood commercial for the residential nearby, and some folks thought that was kind of funny, but I think it's true. I think that's where I'd shop if I lived by it.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
As I'm looking at my answers for why I think Missoula is planning, I'm thinking maybe we need a little more, we have too many things, too many plates in the air. Maybe we need to have a big plate instead of all these little plates. We do have the Missoula Downtown Master Plan that the Missoula Redevelopment Agency is working on, and as Lynn mentioned, the Long Range Transportation Plan, which is looking really fairly far into the future at growth in Missoula and then what kind of transportation is going to be needed for that growth. Jerry talked about the growth policy, the Missoula Urban Comprehensive Plan. They need at least regular periodic review, if not updating. It should be reviewed at least every 3 years. And then the zoning plan rewrite, as everybody's mentioned, hopefully is going to make zoning easier to understand and follow. And I've heard some kind of strange stories about some of the weird zoning that there is. It's very difficult for businesses to figure out how they're going to work within that zoning, and for the planning consultants to help them to know how to do it either. What can you build? What can you not? What kind of setbacks do you have to have? So hopefully that can be addressed. And it's my understanding the city has included an urban initiatives position in the latest budget, which I would certainly support that and see if that's also going to help us to plan for growth.
Thank you, Christine. Renee?
Everybody that I know in Missoula appreciates having a view shed of the surrounding hillsides at one time or another, whether it's from their living room or from where they work or just on their drive to work or just out taking a walk. Open space is valued. We know that, and we know that because of growth, we're going to have to protect it. But I think we can also project ahead to the growth and how we're going to manage it. And if it means setting aside land now and not letting it be developed in case we need a thoroughfare that goes from the Bitterroot out to I-90, I think we need to look ahead not only for open space, but the impact of growth and how we're going to take care of that down the road. I don't see 2% of the people who ride bikes now turning into 90% ever. And I love the bike path system and I love the trail system, but we need to have the infrastructure and we need to project into the future to have that, so we know where we're going to put these major things. They're going to cost money, they're not going to happen overnight, but we need to be ready when they do happen.
Thank you. Now we'd like to open up the floor to questions. If you present your question to any one candidate, we'll go through all candidates, allow them each to respond to that question. Any questions?
Okay, see ya.
Gary?
I can start it.
Do the candidates feel that casinos pose a potential problem in Missoula, and if so, what?
Anybody wanna start?
I'll start. I think it's probably my turn since I get down to the last six. You know, I guess I honestly, I don't feel that casinos themselves pose a direct problem for most of Missoula. I know there's a lot of some animosity and people wanting them in certain areas. If we had to do the casino thing, again, I wouldn't vote for it because I start to have some personal problems that I think on people spending a lot of money on them. But they are something that's part of the law. We have to deal with it. Right now, the way that the casinos basically are integrated with our restaurant, our bars, and sometimes our hotels, I think they're a positive impact, at least bringing people in. But you do have to weigh the good with the bad, and the bad is that a lot of people spend a lot of money that they don't have gambling.
Thank you, Jerry. Lynn?
You know, yeah, there's an upside and a dark side to our casino businesses, but I'm a person that believes in the free market. And if the citizens of Missoula as a majority don't want the casinos, you need to quit frequenting them and they'll diminish in size. On the other side, they have developed a lot of additional businesses. Your title loan places seem to increase exponentially with your casino businesses. You know, so the free market is driving the casinos. I understand that a lot of our restaurant businesses feel they couldn't make it if they weren't able to have the gaming machines. Our state is certainly addicted to that revenue. So at this point, the revenues, the tax relief that they give to the state, I think it's pretty much a wash.
Thank you, Lynn. Renee?
I think that casinos are here to stay, whether I like it or not. I have my own choice. I don't need to legislate other people's choices. I can appreciate the fact that the people on the north side of Reserve did not want a casino as they head up to their neighborhood in Grand Creek. And I think we have enough locations available for casinos that we don't need to plant them into residential neighborhoods. And other than that, I mean, I reckon with the fact that they're here, they're legal, and we do have choices.
Thank you. Christine?
I'm not sure I have too much to add to what anybody else has said. My aunt was addicted to playing Keno and bingo, and she lived on Social Security, and she never had any money. But, you know, she's an adult, and, you know, people have addictions that they have to deal with. I wish there weren't casinos. I was so surprised when I moved here. It was like, oh my gosh, look, there's casinos everywhere. But it is part of state law, and in Florence, you know, they were going to put a casino down at the I forget, the Conoco station. And people did object, and it didn't go in. So I think there's a good process for people to object if they feel it's too close to their kids, too close to schools, too close to the places that they don't want it there. So I agree with my compatriots here that it's a fact of life. And if we're going to deal with the addiction part of it, that's probably needs to be on another level in city council.
Thank you. Ed?
We've had a lot of trouble dealing with casinos. For one thing, we don't license casinos as casinos. We license liquor licenses. We have a fee for each gambling machine, but we don't license casinos. So we have an overlay zone that we have to look at anytime someone wants to put something like that, where nothing like that has been already. And sometimes we approve those and sometimes we don't, but generally we do. Gambling has ruined a lot of people's lives. Gambling, talk about addiction, the state of Montana and the cities of Montana are addicted to gambling revenue and have been since the passage of the initiative that said we could only increase property taxes half the rate of inflation. So gambling, the sites are allowed by the state, the gambling machines are allowed by the state. All we can do really is sometimes say, where you can't have a liquor license.
Thank you. Louis?
Thank you. Where there's a supply, or where there's a demand, there shall be a supply. People like to gamble. It's an American tradition. If they're not gambling in the casino, they're gambling on the corners or in the streets. They're gambling on football, baseball, horse racing, you name it. I don't make a moral judgment about it for myself. I allow people the dignity and the responsibility to make those decisions for themselves. As far as casinos in terms of businesses, I don't see any harm that's being done by any of the casinos that I know anything about in this town. I think the only consideration, and it's been brought up, is the fact that location. Location seems to be an important issue. And so I think that needs to be taken into consideration to protect neighborhoods and residential areas, but as far as gambling in general and casinos, I just look at it as part of our American way of life.
Thank you. Other question? Yes, sir.
I had a question earlier that dealt with attracting and retaining businesses. A lot of you answered that with more to do with attracting rather than retaining or encouraging. So I guess I'd like to know from each of you how you feel the present proposed transportation impact fee affects our local businesses and how they grow themselves or expand or build new facilities. And I'll start it.
The fees that I have heard about proposed by the mayor, quite honestly, I think they're gonna kill the business industry in this community. As I said before, we are playing catch up with our infrastructure. That's a fact of life. Can we impose reasonable fees that do not create hardship, start out small, maybe do it on a phase, so as your business grows, your fee increases? Again, my perception is the majority of the city council feels that the business people in this community are making too much money. They think that you need to share it with them. I disagree. I don't believe in socialism. So are we gonna have to probably impose some impact fees? Absolutely. We've got debt up to our eyeballs. The mayor's even said that we have a budget crunch. With their uncontrolled spending, they're having to come up with more and more creative ways to generate revenues. The fire hydrant fees are a very good example of that. But we can impose reasonable fees that are not going to put our business people out of business.
Thank you, Lynn. Jerry?
I too believe that impact fees will affect our businesses, especially our small businesses, and probably discourage them from expanding, and they will only do that until they absolutely have to. And then if there are impact fees in Missoula and you don't have them in the outside, they'll find a place, they'll start looking outside Missoula to build. And I heard part of our discussion was that, Walmart and the big box stores, they don't mind paying impact fees. But boy, that really shook my tree, because I deal with small businesses all the time. And this little coffee shop that I helped build, that place, if it had to pay the current impact fees, would not have been able to expand and build in a new location, because it just couldn't have sold enough coffee to pay for them. So they are problematic. I would have liked to have seen them. I think we do need some way to address transportation issues, and whether it's an impact fee just for transportation, or maybe some type of a voted bond issue to address transportation issues, I don't know what it would be. But I think that Missoula needs to address, correct and adjust its current impact fees to lessen the load on the city. And that's the only way I see it's gonna pass. Right now, the city council, I think, is kind of split on the issue. So we'll see what kind of compromise comes down the road.
Jerry, Louis?
Thanks for the question. I think it's a great question, but I think it's a deeper issue than what you even brought up in your question. When you're not managing your budget right, you're always going to be looking for ways to bring in more money. Everybody's understood that principle. And I think part of the underlying cause of all of this is that the budget is being very poorly managed. Resources are being very poorly allocated. And so what this is kind of a stopgap measure. We find other ways to bring in more money. Taxation without representation is what that's called. And I'm against it. And I'll be very blunt and frank with you. We as the collective body have to learn how to say no. All the time down there you see people looking for ways to gather more money, increase taxes, make the burden more difficult, not only for business but for homeowners, their property taxes. The meeting I attended on the Hillview problem of SID was really serious. We need to learn how to say no. It's got to start somewhere. And when I get this to the city council, I will be one of the first to say no more taxes. Thank you.
Very good.
The first part of that was retaining businesses. And the second part was expanding and possibly moving to a new location of businesses. And I really sympathize with Lewie. I wish we could do everything for free. It doesn't work. So impact fees are being used to pay for things that would otherwise be paid by people who live here and businesses that already exist. It's not as if there's anyone at City Hall who's trying to run businesses out of town, as far as I know. Kind of an odd concept. Where would everybody work and shop? Why would we have a town? But we do have to keep coming up with new ways to find money. I'm sorry, we can't raise property taxes. We don't have a local sales tax. We don't have a city property tax. We don't have any increased gas taxes since 1993. And unless someone with a little gumption somewhere upstream from the city of Missoula can come up with money, we're going to keep trying to do things to keep Missoula improving day by day.
Thank you. Christine?
It's interesting listening to people talk about the Hillview Way assessments, people in the SID, and they want it to be based on the impact of cars instead of how big their land is. Like their land doesn't drive down Hillview. And then it's like, well, no, we can't be for impact fees when sometimes it's fair and sometimes it's not fair. So when is it fair and when is it not fair? It's my understanding that state law provides for impact fees to be only on the impact of transportation that new development causes. Like if someone builds a new house or a subdivision in Miller Creek, they can't be forced to pay $50 million to build the bridge. It has to be exactly what is impacted by the new development. And if you have good transportation, people are going to come to your business. If they can drive there, we've talked about the Broadway corridor. People can drive there, people can take the bus there. You know, you got to have money. As Ed says, you got to have money to have more buses so that people can, you know, go down Reserve and come to people's place of businesses. The impact fees are only going to improve people coming to businesses. And yes, they're going to be difficult to pay for. Nobody wants to pay for more fees. But then I ask this the question again. When is it fair? Is it fair sometimes and it's not fair other times? You know, sometimes it's not fair if it impacts me, but it's fair if it impacts you. And a transportation impact fee like this, it just deals with the new development and the impact, I think is probably a fair way to try to raise money to improve our infrastructure and the transportation options so that people can get to businesses more easily.
Thank you. Renee?
Boy, I wish I had a crystal ball and a bottomless bank account. I don't think that established businesses, I look back to my husband and his business, and we kept afloat. We weren't getting rich. We're just common people scratching out a living in Missoula. And I think those taxes would have been really, really strangling to him and his business. I remember when we got hit with a requirement, which I actually support, and so did Jack, to put in a filtering system, anyway, to protect our aquifer. I think that is vital to this community. But it was a big chunk of change to have an excavator come out here and put in these special separating things. And I think the fees on established business, where a lot of them are just scratching along, trying to make a living in the first place, are gonna really kill them. We need money to be going into a general fund so that we don't have to hit the people where they live as they're there. And Hillview Way is a great example of that.
Thank you. We're running out of time, sorry. So I'd like to close with giving each candidate 1 minute to summarize. Jerry, you'd like to start?
Yes, thank you for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. This new election process doesn't give us a whole lot of chance to really reach out in the community and let you know who people are and what they're doing. I stand and come before you on council, I think, is kind of a balancing member of the council. In my election, I've tried to look at issues. 8 and 7.5 years, I've made a lot of votes, some of which probably you agreed with, some of which you probably haven't. But I try to look at each issue on the merits and find out and determine what is the best for the city. My support of the aquatics project is one of those examples. My decision to change and build the city council chambers when we were meeting down in St. Pat's in a very unworkable area that seemed to have no end is another example. My decision to help approve the Apple Grove subdivision with the minor changes and moving houses a little bit farther apart is an example of a way to balance. So I'm running as a factor on trying to balance two different, I think, oppositions on city council, and I will continue to approach those issues as such.
Jerry, Lynn?
The reasons that I decided to run for city council were basically twofold. One, I don't feel that the public is being listened to. Our government is not transparent. I would like to see more information given to the public. I don't know how many of you have attended the city council meetings, but they basically give you what the motion is going to be. They don't give you any basis financial information so that the public can intelligently comment on what is before the city council. I also think the fiscal policies of the city government, one of the issues was the fire hydrant fees. When Don Nicholson made a motion requesting that the city council sit down with the city and look at ways to cut spending in order to rebate that money back to the citizens, the majority of the council said, no, we're not even going to talk about it. We're not going to look at it. That I find appalling. I also find appalling that the city was comfortable letting one of the toys, that being the aquatics project, run millions of dollars over budget. That, to me, I voted for 8.1 million. That's what I expected to pay, not 13.4.
Okay, thank you. Renee?
I am a big proponent of transparency in government. I think we who pay the taxes, who pay the salaries, who support the infrastructure and benefit from the community, need to know where's our money going and how's it being used. We need to not have backdoor agreements that come out in the paper 2 years later. We need fiscal responsibility. And again, people need to know where their money's going. They need to have I look at this Hillview Way project, I'm going to digress just a second, and I'm sure that if our engineer had come up with the impact fees saying this is going to cost $2.8 million and you're going to have about this and you're going to have about this, 2 years ago when this project got off the ground, we would have had this conversation and probably be a lot further ahead right now than we are the way it stands. So I think we need to plan for our infrastructure. We also have a budget. It's gonna be a big thing to balance. I'm willing to help take it on. I don't know how much we as city council can do. A lot of the decisions that we get to make have already been filtered and weighed and drawn out, and then we get to go yay or nay. I'd like to see that change a little bit, or a lot.
Thank you, Renee. Christine?
One of the questions on part one of the chamber questions was about communicating with businesses. Somebody asked me if I was gonna have a blog, and I said, oh, well, I don't know, I might. I'm not too tech savvy, but I know there are a lot of people like my parents and in my ward who don't even have computers, so I have to figure out how to communicate with the public. But one thing that I will do if I'm elected is go to every single business in Ward 5, little ones and big ones, there's some big ones and some little ones, and find out, just let them know that I'm available, give them my contact information, find out what are their important issues, and make sure that I stay in contact with them, especially about those issues they know that they can approach me. I'm running to be a positive voice, as I said before, to help build consensus, I hope, to work together with other council people on these difficult issues that are facing Missoula. And I've heard people talk about being entrenched. You know, you have the six that are on one side and the six on the other side, and it reminds me of World War I. And finding my grandfather's World War I diaries and translating them kind of for my dad. And, you know, I've said before that I believe I could be somebody who's going to stand in no man's land. You know, when you stand in no man's land, they'll shoot at you. But somebody needs to say, look, we need to work together, not just fight, because the issues facing Missoula are way too important. And that's what I hope to do in a positive and consensus-building way.
Thank you, Christine. Ed?
Geez, I didn't think I was in no man's land, and I'm getting shot at anyway. So don't count on not getting shot at.
Oh, I'm sure that will.
So we should have, if we'd been looking ahead, 50 years ago when I was a kid, we would have built all the infrastructure that would be needed for 250,000 people, so we wouldn't be having a lot of the problems that we have today. But 20,000 people didn't need that. Those people didn't have the money to do it. Some of the things that we have now weren't even there at the time. We didn't have sewer and sewer plants when I was a kid. So I'm told. This aquatics issue keeps coming up, and it was an $11 million project. Some of you probably aware of that, and the funding came from various sources, and the cost ballooned, and it came in $2 or $3 million more than it started. That was unfortunate. Jerry worked real hard to shepherd the committee and get everything put back together, and it was very fortunate, I thought, for the city and for the rest of the council that Jerry's an architect. He kind of knew what he was doing, and we got the thing built. People seem to love it. That's what we want to do, I think, as Missoulians, is get things done that people love. And boy, that's something. I was out for the opening of England Boulevard. We got a piece of roadway through. That was like pulling teeth. It was hard to do. So can't I just talk another 2-3 hours?
Thank you, Ed. Louie?
Thank you again. It's been great being here. I've enjoyed it. I'm sure the rest have too. There's an old saying, those who fail to plan are planning to fail. Several months ago, when the decision was made by me to enter into this contest, I decided I needed to come up with a plan. Now, I didn't know if the plan was going to lead to success or not, but I want to read you a few of the things. If you haven't picked up one of my flyers, I encourage you to do so, and anybody out there in TV land who would like one, I'll get one to you. But I want to read a couple of things here that I wrote several months ago. And this is about me, and this is about why I'm running as a candidate for city council, what I would like to be about. Okay. Lewie is going to be open-minded. I want to hear all of your concerns. Lewie will pledge to help change and improve the current atmosphere of our severely divided city council and restore the balance of power. City government, in Lewie's opinion, must reflect the needs of the people and never for special interests. Lewie must always have, people must always have direct access to Lewie, and for all of those, they elect for changes concerning their needs. That's a platform that I decided that I would run on. And that's a platform I'm gonna carry forward with, and that's why I'm here before you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. On your chairs, there's a rating form. One of the missions of the chamber is to educate their members. They've asked us to help them know which candidates support the mission of the chamber. So we ask you to complete this form and drop it off before you leave. I have one other announcement. I've been asked to remind those that there is the 2007 Timber Tour. We've had some tremendous fires this year. And this tour, which is scheduled for October 12th, has a lot of information pertaining to that. Okay, Jack.
I'm Jack Chambers, and I'm the current chairman of the Chamber's Board of Directors. And from the Chamber Board and our Chamber membership, we really want to thank you for participating in this. The questions beforehand that we did a few weeks ago in this forum this morning, you can tell there's certainly an interest in our community. And more importantly, we've talked about it for several years, and I don't think you ever hear it enough, but we applaud you as chamber board members and the chamber itself and citizens of Missoula for having the courage and the gumption and all of that to run, to seek public office. We really do applaud you for that. And maybe to leave you with one burning desire of the chamber is that what we want in our relationship with the city council is to enhance that partnership that we've had over the years. We feel that the chamber does represent, we're almost 1,000 members these days. You're talking about not only those businesses, but representing thousands and thousands of families in this community who work in this community, and we're a healthy business environment in Missoula is kind of the heartbeat of Missoula, and how we keep that vibrant is a partnership with City Council. So we encourage that and want to enhance that partnership. So thanks for running again. Thanks for being here. That's great.
Thank you, Jeff. And that concludes our forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.